सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। ॐ शन्नो मित्रः शं वरुणः शन्नो भवत्वर्यमा शन्न इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः। नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वामेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु मामवतु वक्तारम्। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः। ॐ यश्छन्दसां वृषभो विश्वरूपः छन्दोभ्योऽध्यमृतात् सम्बभूव समेन्द्रो मेधया स्पृणोतु अमृतस्य देवधारणो भूयासं शरीरं मे विचर्षणं जिह्वा मे मधुमत्तमा कर्णाभ्यां भूरिविश्रुवम् ब्राह्मणः कोशोऽसि मेधया पिहितः श्रुतं मे गोपाय। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। So we were studying this third mantra for inner peace, in which in our previous class we talked about the three forms of tapas, translated it as austerity. The third niyama on three levels: on the physical level, on the verbal level, and on the mental, psychological level. The section which we studied at the end, Karnabhyam Bhuri Vishruvam, may I hear abundantly with my ears, pointed to tapas on a psychological level, on a mental level, because it is by listening that we receive living knowledge. Despite this tremendous emphasis on listening and receiving knowledge through listening, the masters of the Upanishads never cease to amaze us when they start negating something. On one side, first, as a means, as an instrument, they will point out the importance of something. But then at some point, so that the student, the listener, the aspirant, the practitioner does not get attached to it, at some point they will also completely dismiss it and point out how insignificant it is actually. This is sometimes very difficult to understand, but when we actually walk on this path, we realize that the moment we find something pleasant, informative, something soothing, something that, because the light of wisdom is tremendously soothing. It can give us a tremendous sense of delight. Yet the masters don't want us to settle for anything less than the essential nature deep within every living entity. And so anything that potentially could become a trap, they tend at some point to inspire, they inspire to discard us that as well. And that is what we find, even though here we can see that there is tremendous importance is laid on listening as a form of internal austerity, internal tapas. Difficult to translate it as austerity, as I've pointed out, but still, let's use that word for the lack of any other better word. What was the other suggestion on that day? Moderation. But again, can moderation be used here in this context? Yeah, it's again in the context of psychological tapas, where tapas is about burning away the impurity of the mind, such as the fire burns away the impurity of metal. So in that sense, again, moderation is difficult. It's very difficult to use it, but tapas works perfectly. Sorry? Just use tapas. Just use tapas. That's the best thing. Just use tapas. Explain it as much as we can, and then let's use it. That's all. So despite placing tremendous importance on it, somewhere else in the Upanishads, the masters point out, na bahuna shrutena, not by listening a lot. This essential nature present within every living entity cannot be experienced by listening a lot, by which they mean that if simply someone sits down and says, okay, I won't do anything else, I'll just keep on listening, and that should lead me into the realization, they would say that doesn't work, because for that what the masters call Adhyatma Yoga, sitting down and settling down within oneself. Yes, listening is useful because it shows us the technique, it shows us the path. It gives us an insight into the experience, therefore it is beneficial. But it is not the only means, it is an indirect means, not a direct means. For a direct means, a person needs to discard everything that they have heard and the conditioning that comes by that listening, even that has to be discarded. Because the masters point out that listening can only convey to us what the person speaking has experienced, if at all he is speaking from his experience. That is also very difficult to judge as a third person, because a person can be speaking based simply on his scriptural knowledge, or a person can be speaking from his own experience. But even if he's speaking from his own experience, ultimately what he's speaking about is his own experience. And it's as simple as that I can be speaking about the experience of the sweetness of sugar based either on everything that I have read and learned about it. But even if I speak about it based on my own experience, for a listener it will never be the same as going out and experiencing the sugar for themselves. But yet, yes, what listening does is that it tells us where to find that sugar. And that's exactly because the Vedantic masters, the Upanishadic masters, they don't use the analogy of sugar, but they use the analogy of madhu, of honey, repeatedly. And so many of the discussions, such as we find in the Upanishads, in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there are sections about where to find this universal honey, this sweetness of life, which fills our life with the sweetness of bliss, the sweetness of peace, the sweetness of joy and contentment. Where to find it? So in that sense, listening is useful like a map. It gives us the perspective, but it can never be the same as experiencing it for oneself. So yes, here in these Shanti mantras, tremendous importance has been given to listening, but then again at some point the masters say, no, don't allow this, even this, because we love information, but even this should not become a trap, and a person needs to raise beyond it, because ultimately what matters is not knowledge, not information, but what we do with it. And that is where the masters then speak about the flowers that a person needs to cultivate in the garden of one's heart, to offer to the omnipresent divinity residing within the heart of all beings. These flowers which we offer out there to a statue in a temple, they are mere symbols. It is like simply playing with dolls. Children do that. And it is beneficial. It leads to cognitive development for a child. It is important for a child to play with those dolls because it leads to cognitive development. But how long? will it keep on playing with those dolls? At some point, the child has to grow up and deal with actual things. And these flowers which we offer out there symbolically stand for deeper principles within ourselves which need to be cultivated like the flowers in the garden. Today we buy flowers in the shops. We just pay a little bit of money and get it and offer it. But when we look at the ancient rituals, the whole idea was actually to do the work with that awareness. And I think people in India don't understand this as well as I've seen the Balinese people. They really understand this because they spend hours and hours in preparing their offerings because that's part of the process. And that's for them, that is equally important as the last ritual we just last for a few moments maybe. But they start preparing so much in advance. But we don't do that. We just buy it and we offer it. Everything that we offer, we just buy and offer. The whole idea is to be engaged, to work hard and then prepare everything that we offer with that love, with that awareness. Then everything that we do becomes part of that worship. In any case, the flowers, the 8 flowers that the masters speak about, which need to be cultivated. The first one, ahimsa prathamam pushpam. Ahimsa, non-violence, is the first flower. The second flower is self-control. The third flower is sarva bhuta daya, compassion towards all living beings. This is the third flower. The fourth flower, Shanti pushpam vishishyate. The fourth flower is the greatest of all these flowers, which is forgiveness, tolerance, forgiveness. This is the so ahimsa, indriya nigraha, sarva bhuta daya, Shanti, forgiveness, the most important of these 8, the fourth one, and then the fifth one, Shama, Shanti, peace of heart, for which we are studying these mantras. Dhamma, peace of the senses, which means settling down of the senses, not that they run from here and there. And that is where yoga practice comes into the picture. Fifth one is peace of mind. Sixth one is the settling down of the senses. Can also be understood as pratyahara, to use the words of Patanjali. And then the seventh pushpa, the seventh flower is dhyana, meditation. And the 8th one is truthfulness. Truthfulness in life. These 8 flowers which require tremendous effort to be cultivated. Look just at the life of some of the great saints. For example, the person that straight away comes to my mind right now is Mahatma Gandhi. What he perfected in his life, the first flower and the last flower. Ahimsa, non-violence, and truthfulness. These were the 2 central principles around which his life, his spirituality, his religion, if he had any, and his political career revolved all around these 2 principles. So these are the 8 flowers that the masters speak of. Listening helps in finding ways to cultivate them, but listening merely is not enough and is not the same as cultivating them. So now we can proceed to the last 2 sentences of this 3. Sorry, yes?
There's one question. of the dhyana in this case, the eight flowers, truthfulness.
Truthfulness, yes.
And isn't it going through that in the Yoga Sutras, the eight is samadhi, what is a kind of truthfulness?
Sorry?
Would you say there is a relation between the samadhi at the eighth step?
Yes.
In truthfulness, receiving, being with this truthfulness,
yes.
and the truthfulness that comes at the eighth flower after meditation?
Yes, 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 certainly. Certainly, because samadhi is about, the masters always speak of two types of truths. Even this first mantra, when we studied the first mantra, we came across these two words, Ritam vadishyami, Satyam vadishyami. I will speak what is Rita, the universal truth, and I shall declare the truth. So this mantra speaks about two types of truths, the universal truth as well as the truth on this worldly level of existence. It's exactly the same in the teachings of the Buddha. Nagarjuna, in his Madhyamaka text on Madhyamaka, points out that the masters always declare their teachings in two different types of truths. The one truth is the truth as we perceive it, through the five senses. The worldly truth, the truth out there. And sometimes they declare the truth the way they have experienced it. The paramarthika truth, what can be called the supreme truth. And if you look at the word Rita as a pointer to that universal truth, to that higher truth, then samadhi, in the understanding of Patanjali, is all about cultivating what he calls an intellect which is capable of holding that Rita within it. And that is why, towards the end of the first chapter, as a result of object-conscious meditation, Sampradhyata Samadhi, he speaks about the arising of Ritambhara Prajna, which means the intellect which is capable of holding within it Rita, which means the universal truth. So yes, it is deeply, deeply connected. This eighth flower is deeply connected with samadhi. It's a beautiful point that you made, and thank you very much.
Which one is the sixth flower?
The sixth flower is the fourth one was forgiveness. The fifth one was Shanti, a peace of the heart, and the sixth one was the settling down of the senses. Because the senses are where consciousness meets the world out there. So if they are settled, that is pratyahara. It's about pratyahara, which is essentially there before dhyana takes place, meditation takes place. Okay. Now in the next sentence, the master addresses, still he's addressing Om, and he says, Brahmaṇaḥ kośo'si. You are the kosha, the sheath, the vessel of Brahman. What does this mean? What does this sentence mean? First of all, what is the meaning of the word kosha? Kosha is a widely used term in the Upanishads. It is an allegorical term because what kosha in fact means is a cask, a vessel to hold something, a vessel to hold liquids. The word kosha, anything that covers something from all sides. If you look up the dictionary, it can be a box, it can be a trunk, it can be a sheath, it can be a scabbard, to protect the blade of a sword, etc. It can also be used for a store, such as a storeroom. For that also the word kosha is used. It is used for treasure. So such as the treasurer in ancient India of a kingdom used to be called kośo'si, the president of the kosha, the president of the treasure. So the king's treasure was also called kosha. Kosha simply it can be used for anything that contains something within itself. That is basically what kosha means. Any English translation, any particular word that we use in English translation is limiting, because it's always in relationship to something very specific, while kosha is, if you say sheath, scabbard, it is in relationship to a sword most likely. Then sometimes it is a room, sometimes a box, a trunk, so many different things. I think container would be a good word. But again, a container is only a huge container usually today. So again, it's limiting. But Brahmaṇaḥ kośo'si, you contain that consciousness within yourself. What does the master mean by this? There are various ways to explain this statement. First of all, the idea is, you see, if you want to find something, you approach the container and you find it there. If you are searching for a sword, search for the sheath, the scabbard. If you are searching for the wealth, then search for the room and you will find it. So the idea is that when the master says that you are the container of Brahman, you contain that pure consciousness within yourself, it means that when a person in meditation approaches you, then you become a means, you become an instrument to find that Brahman, that consciousness. Ultimately, it should not be misunderstood that consciousness would be found within Om, but simply Om helps one to find it, to become aware of it within oneself. That's all. So in that sense, because when we explained Om previously, the Sanskrit word for symbol, because I pointed out that Om is a symbol, like or a pointer, like a finger pointing to something. The Sanskrit word for symbol, I don't know what the English word symbol means linguistically, but the Sanskrit word pratika means that which gives rise to an insight. So a symbol, that's why any word, the moment I say flower, it gives rise to the notion of flower. Something that which gives a clear apprehension or an insight into something. The Buddha uses there is a very well-known Buddhist terminology, pratyaya, mental concept, mental notion. The Buddha uses it very frequently, and Patanjali uses this word also very frequently in the Yoga Sutras. And pratyaya simply is the Sanskrit word for a mental concept, a mental notion. And that which is capable of giving rise to a concept, to a comprehension, to an understanding, to an idea, that is called pratika. That is what a symbol does. The moment we have a symbol in front of us, provided we understand what it stands for, otherwise it's of no use. If we hear the word for flower in Chinese language, then at least I won't understand anything. Shao certainly would. Many of our friends would, but I won't. And many of us want, because we have not realized that relationship between the symbol and that which is being symbolized. But once we have understood the relationship, then every time when we come across that symbol, it makes us aware of that which is being symbolized by it. That is what the Sanskrit word pratika stands for. So the masters explain that when the commentators explain that when the master here says that you contain Brahman within you, it means you are a symbol of that Brahman, because you make us think of it. You inspire us to become aware of it. Container also means a vessel. And what does it contain? Some other masters say, well, it doesn't contain Brahman. Brahman is omnipresent. But what Om does, that it helps us to contain our mind. Which means, because our mind is like liquid, it so easily flows away, like water through our fingers, it's so sand through our fingers. We hold it, but it flows away. But Om is like a vessel which is capable of holding our mind when we are trying to meditate. So this is another, because he just said you are a vessel. But a vessel, what do you contain? That the masters doesn't say. So various commentators take a lot of freedom in explaining what it actually contains. So as a symbol, it contains that pure consciousness within it. As a prop to support one's mind, it is capable of containing our mind within it. And in that sense, it is a prop. Then we call it an alambana. When it holds pure consciousness within it, we call it a pratika, a symbol. When we treat it as a symbol, we say that it contains pure consciousness within it. And when we treat it as a prop, then we can say that it is a prop because it contains our mind in it. And once that awareness of pure consciousness is cultivated, then Om, meditation on Om, also protects it. Like the scabbard, the sheath of a sword actually protects the blade from becoming dull. Similarly, Om also protects that cultivated awareness. That is another work that Om does. In that sense, it is a sheath. So the masters have explored various aspects of what a container or what a sheath does. And that is how they have explained this passage. Now, the last thing, a container, a box, needs to have a lid in which it keeps hidden within it what it holds, what it contains. What is the lid in this case? This is what the last two words of this sentence, medhayā pihitaḥ, covered, veiled, closed by the intellect. Now you see, that is what I said. On one side, this prayer was all about acquiring intelligence, strengthening one's intellect. But then, towards the end, the master is saying that the same intellect which he desires to acquire is also what veils, what covers this awareness, even our most brilliant intelligence, if we don't know how to deal with it, it's all about the object. All that we understand through our intellect, whatever we understand by it, we understand as an object, as something different from itself. And the essence that we are talking about is not the object of the intellect. It cannot become the object of the intellect, but it is the very subject of the intellect. It is that which knows when the intellect knows, and it is that which knows when the intellect doesn't know as well, which is the witness of the intellect. When I say, I know, yes, I understand this, I am the one who is witnessing my understanding, my faculty of understanding. That is why I'm saying that I understand. But when I say, no, I'm sorry, I don't understand this, in that moment, I realize that my faculty of understanding is incapable of understanding this, and yet I am understanding that. So I am not that faculty of understanding which is sometimes capable of understanding and sometimes incapable of understanding, but I am that which witnesses the faculty of understanding, which sometimes understands and sometimes understands not. I am that. And that is what the teachings of the masters is about. Which is something deeper than the mere faculty of understanding. It is the witness of that faculty of understanding. But if someone fails to understand this simple truth and is only lost in that which is presented by the faculty of understanding, whether the faculty of understanding is faced outward and gathers a lot of information about the world out there, or whether the faculty of understanding is faced inward and gathers in a third person a lot of information about the self through these teachings, in both cases, someone who is lost in that faculty of understanding and fails to become aware of that which underlies that faculty of understanding, which is consciousness itself. For such a person, that faculty of understanding, that most brilliant intelligence, that great scholarship, that vast amount of knowledge, that highest state of sattva guna, the quality of light, that knowledge, even that becomes like a lid, because then it covers the truth. Rather than revealing the truth, it covers the truth. And that is why Patanjali speaks about, I said, acquiring the intellect which is capable of holding the truth. But then the greatest detachment for him, which leads into the final step of yoga, is the detachment that a person cultivates even towards this greatest wealth which one has cultivated through all his practice, this deep insight on an intellectual level, deep insight on a mental level. He even detaches himself from that. That is what is for Patanjali the highest detachment. The masters speak about this again and again in different languages. And that is why even when we were studying the Ishavasya Upanishad, if you remember towards the end, Hiranmayena Patrena Satyasya Pihitam Mukham, by the golden radiant vessel, the face of the truth is covered. That is what was meant there. And the same thing is being meant by this sentence. And that is why sometimes my previous talks seemed to give this impression that it is only somebody who is extremely smart and very intelligent who can understand what the masters are speaking about. And I became aware of this when I was asked this question just 2 days ago by one of our viewers in Canada. And she asked that, does it mean that someone not so smart cannot find the self? Smart as in intellectually developed versus emotionally intelligent only? Is that what you mean when you speak about medhayā? That brilliant intelligence, that capacity to retain knowledge and wisdom. Somebody who doesn't have it, can he not acquire it? No, that's exactly not the point, because ultimately even this intelligence becomes a lid and potentially can cover the truth from ourselves. So yes, like all the different instruments, tools, this too is an instrument. The more refined it becomes through the practice of yoga, the more subtle, the more settled, the more sharp, the deeper it can go through the practice of yoga, the more easier it becomes. But it is not 100% guarantee that by acquiring a lot of intellectual brilliance, a person would acquire this which the masters are speaking about. So this is what medhayā pihitaḥ, veiled by the intellect, which I've translated as, yes, veiled by the intellect. Once again, the final prayer is Śrutaṁ gopāya. Guard what I have heard. Everything that we have heard can never be protected. We will forget what we have heard. Not each and every word can be guarded. But the quintessence of it should be protected, should be guarded, and should not only be protected and guarded, but should also be nourished. And this Sanskrit root, gopāya, which is also the root for the Sanskrit word for a secret, such as when we say a secret knowledge, gupta jnana, gupta, which means secret wisdom. So, to keep it secret, again, that secret, it is like I have to save it from everyone. Even if someone asks me about it, I should not be talking about it, It's completely secret. Not in that sense, but yes, to protect it close to my heart and then to nourish it. Because that is what the root, gup, which has been used here. O Om, O radiant essence being pointed at by Om, give me the strength so that I may protect it within my heart and I may nourish it, render it prosperous by living by it, by introducing these principles into my life and by leading a peaceful, loving, kind, compassionate, friendly life. This is what is meant by nourishment. So Śrutaṁ me gopāya, Om Śāntiḥ, Śāntiḥ, Śāntiḥ. Om, peace on the physical level, peace on the verbal level, peace on the mental level, peace of suffering and grief caused by the body and mind, peace of suffering caused by other living entities, other human beings or other creatures, and peace of suffering and grief caused by natural occurrences. This is why the Master says, Om Śāntiḥ, Śāntiḥ, Śāntiḥ. Peace, peace, peace. So once again, before I conclude, let me point out something very fundamental about meditation on Om. Meditation on Om is not about introducing something into one's mind, but it is about freeing one's mind from everything. And this is the fundamental difference between, I would say, whatever I can think of right now, and this is a highly generalized statement. I could be wrong in certain details, but generally speaking, all other Hindu Vedic traditions, and I don't mean by this Jain or Buddhist traditions, I'm just speaking about Hindu Vedic traditions. This is a fundamental difference between most of the Hindu traditions and Advaita Vedanta, because those traditions in meditation introduce something and then remain with that, particularly the devotional traditions. So for example, if we look at one of the prayers of a great sage Nimbarkacharya, which is also the tradition of my family, my father, my grandfather practiced that aspect of that tradition. When in his hymns dedicated to Radha, the consort of Krishna, what he says, that you arise within the space of consciousness in my heart. So it's about a name and a form arising within the space of the heart and then being with that. It's beautiful. It is extremely, extremely beautiful. But I don't know whether Nimbarkacharya, not to my knowledge, takes the next step, which is what Advaita Vedanta would say. Om, the greatest symbol, or any other symbol. For Advaita Vedanta, it doesn't matter which symbol one chooses. Again, this is something very different from all the other traditions in Advaita Vedanta, because all the traditions have their chosen symbols. Advaita Vedanta has no chosen symbol of its own. It accepts all symbols work. It doesn't matter which symbol one chooses. Yes, Om has something very special about it, so it gives tremendous importance to Om, like all other traditions. But ultimately, that practice on one, that focus on one, that attentiveness on one is simply as an instrument to get rid of the awareness of many. To get rid from this tendency of the mind to jump from thought to thought like a monkey, from branch to branch. Simply to be with one. The purpose of being with one is that. And whether for that one uses a symbol like Om, the most preferable symbol of the Upanishadic masters, or on a less advanced stage, whether a person uses a physical symbol such as prana, the vital breath, which the Upanishadic masters use preferably in their meditations found in the Aranyakas, whether that symbol or whether any other symbol, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, even that one has to lead us into that ultimate silence, into that emptiness, into that absence of everything else. Om, through the inevitable silence which follows the pronunciation of M, and our lips are closed, and inevitably that silence follows, leads us into that silence. That is the most beautiful thing about this symbol. But in the same way, each and every symbol ultimately needs us to lead there. And I think that is the most important thing that needs to be mentioned in the context of meditation on Om. With this, we conclude this third mantra, and we'll also conclude for this year the talks on the 10 Shanti mantras, because for us the year ends in May. So, and we won't have an opportunity now to have another talks on the Shanti mantras up to November, which for us is the next year, seen from the perspective of the Yoga Center. And so there won't be any classes anymore. So now we have finished this mantra, 3 mantras in 6 months. But that is, my master, my teacher always used to say that there are 2 methods of teaching these teachings. One is Vyasa Shaili, and the other one is Samasa Shaili. Let me just find the English word. Yes. The concise or succinct, yes. Succinct. Succinct. Okay. Let me be with concise. The concise method or the concise manner. So there is one concise method of teaching these teachings, and one that is called Samasa Shaili. And then there is the detailed method of teaching these teachings, which is known as Vyasa Shaili. So Vyasa is the Sanskrit word when you open a cloth, and you put it in front of everyone, big. Or then you, how do you call it? You fold it, yes. You fold it and you give it to someone. That is Samasa Shaili. That is the concise method. So what we did for this whole year was an open cloth, and now from the 9th onwards, for 8 days, we will study the Upanishads in a relatively concise method. So we'll try to go through. And both have their own beauty, because when we study the Upanishads in that way, we have to rush through many concepts. But we gather a lot of information about the Upanishads. But when we study the Upanishads like this, we can focus, we can go into the depth of those ideas, which will not be possible when we study it in a concise method. Yet both have their pros and cons. So we can benefit from both of them. He used to teach, I still have to master that technique. We took around 10 to 12 years, along with the commentaries and sub-commentaries and annotations, to study all the 10 Upanishads. But he also taught them in 18 days. He was very, very, very good. He used to have these 18-day seminars all over India, in which 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the afternoon, and he would teach all the 10 Upanishads, each and every mantra, without leaving out anything. But that was just mostly, it used to be just a translation, that's all. So, but from ancient times there have been always these two methods. So this was the Vyasa, the detailed method, and we'll come back to the concise, succinct, whatever method. We'll have to check the pronunciation. Okay, so yeah, I'm also confused. So whatever, SUCCINT method, and that's the beauty of English language. Most of the time, this never happens in Sanskrit. In Sanskrit language, you can be 100% sure what is the correct pronunciation. But in English, when C becomes cha, when it becomes sa, and when it becomes ka, only the English-speaking people can tell us. So
just for the course around this
yes.
evening, those who are interested, it will start on Sunday at 2 o'clock.
Yes, first Sunday at 2 o'clock. 9th. 9th.
So from 2 to 4. And then every day in the morning from 9:30 to 11:30. And then in the afternoon 1:30 to 3:30. So those who are in the general class in the evening and in the beginners class, they still can join the class. And the practice in the morning will be from 7 to 9. So you can even have time for the practice also. So those who are interested, they can register on the reception. There's a registration fee of 600 rupees, and the rest is on donation.
Any questions? Yes.
Could you clarify that bit you were talking about Om as pratika and as
Om, the difference between Om as pratika and Om as an alambana. In one of my previous classes, when we started studying this mantra, I pointed out that if one uses Om simply as a pointer and meditates on that which is being pointed at while pronouncing Om, which is the method that Patanjali speaks of, one is treating Om as an alambana, as a support. But if while pronouncing Om, one is also meditating on Om itself as an object, then it becomes a pratika. So that is the difference. And this is a very basic practice. This is something that can be practiced even before we fully understand the meaning and the significance of Om.
So in any word, there are two parts. There is the signifier and there is the signifier.
Exactly. Yes.
Now,
In every pratika. That's why every word is a pratika. Every word is a pratika. Every mantra ultimately is a pratika.
yeah, but so what Om contains are and
Ma.
uh,
Uma.
is is actually a larger, it's a meta symbol.
Is a meta symbol, yes. The kind of, yes.
But I'm still not able to grasp how meditation on Om as the symbol and meditation on Om, or on what Om signifies, how are they separate?
Meditation on Om as a symbol just treats the symbol itself as the object, which is a very preliminary and basic practice. And when Om is treated as a prop, then it's not, then the meditator does not meditate on Om itself, but he meditates on that which is being signified. So you have a pointer. If you meditate on that which is being pointed at, then you are treating it as an alambana, merely as a prop to support your mind. If you are using it, if rather than meditating on that which is being pointed at, but you are just meditating on this, you are having, you see, when we meditate on Patanjali, we look at this statue as a symbol of that universal master. What does a Vaishnava do when he meditates on a Shaligrama? He says, this is Vishnu. In that moment, or a Shaiva, when he meditates on Shivalingam, that this is Shiva, he's simply using that Shivalingam as a pratika. That's all. In the same way, like a devotee of Shiva uses the Shivalingam as a symbol to that universal presence, a devotee of Vishnu uses Shalagrama as a symbol, that piece of stone. In the same way, if someone uses the sound or the symbol of Om simply as a symbol in its own, then it becomes a pratika. Without even a higher understanding, just for the sake of retention, just for the sake of focusing oneself, that's all. Without, these days there is this tendency, don't get into the meanings of the mantras, just pronounce them and let the vibrations take over. So then they are treating it as a pratika, not as an alambana, not as a support, just a pratika.
It only works as an alambana if you can utter the mantra into your Kali chants.
And you understand the deeper meaning. You understand the whole meaning, then it works as an alambana. Yes. So that sort of is the difference between both. Pratika is that which leads into the understanding of something, and alambana is simply something that we can take hold of. That's all. That's the difference between both.
So this can adapt to many things?
To many
Also
things,
to the way
yes.
we practice our asana.
Yes.
We can use asana in
Same principles. That is what Guruji beautifully does. That the idea of props which he developed, he applied it. We are saying about applying it, he actually applied it. He said that, okay, if the practitioners of meditation can use Om as an alambana, as something to hang from, why can I not use actual ropes to hang from? And to actual supports, bolsters, etc., to support myself? Why not? So that is what he did, and that is what last time when this Chinese group was here, the translator, she pointed out something. She does a lot of translations for the various teachers. She said that with Iyengar Yoga, I found something unique, that the teachers of Iyengar Yoga again and again bring the Yoga Sutras into the practice, into the asana practice, and show that how the deeper concepts, deeper ideas of the Yoga Sutras can be introduced in very practical terms into one's practice of asana. Her view, Her view. Whether others have it, I have not experienced other forms, so I cannot judge for that. Her view. I'm just quoting her. So that is what she said. But nonetheless, whoever does it, it's a beautiful thing. That's the whole idea, that whatever we study here, when we grasp it, when we grasp the whole scheme, when we grasp the whole idea, then the question always is, what are we practicing? What are we doing? Are we practicing karma yoga, selfless action? Are we practicing bhakti yoga, devotion? Are we practicing the asana aspect of yoga? Are we practicing the pranayama aspect of yoga? How to incorporate these ideas into our practice and go deeper into one's practice. That is what Guruji did. That is what we as aspirants, as practitioners, need to find our own ways of incorporating these deeper truths into our own practice. That is the challenge we are faced with. That is what we need to do. That is why we are studying this, not because we have to study the 10 Shanti mantras. Then they lead towards Shanti, towards peace. Otherwise not. That is what is meant by assimilation. When we start assimilating these ideas into whatever we are doing, first of all in our asana practice, then also in our relationships, in our dealings with others, in our whole life, in every aspect of our life. If something is beautiful, then why just be limited about it? Why not in every aspect of our life? With understanding. So, should we conclude, Mataji? Should we conclude? So let us conclude this session with the prayer for the universal well-being. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः. My humble salutations to each one of you. Thank you very much.